What up, fam? Welcome to Tales Tomorrow. I'm Morrow, your storyteller for today. Whether me have some more RPG horror stories, my sleep schedule's so terrible. It's like 7 in the morning, and here I am recording RPG horror stories because I don't know what else to do. I mean, I got things to do, but I kind of really want to do this, so I'm doing this before the day begins. So let's get some RPG horror stories for today. Today's story submission is a bit of a long one, so we're gonna take nice and slow and easy through it. There's a lot of text and a lot of context to grasp into, and it's written by one of the viewers that submitted to it. I've read it before and actually recorded this one before, and I'll be honest, there was a little bit of frustration there whenever I read through it, and my initial feedback for it is a bit harsh. I decided to re-record it to see if I have a little bit of a clear consensus on it and see how I feel afterwards. Nevertheless, let's go and begin. Dr. Nurch, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Purple. Good day, I think. I haven't told this horror story in a while, which is a good thing, but unfortunately, since I'm typing this right now, this means I do have another story to tell, and this one is a mess. A story how me and my character were both driven to desperate measures and betrayal. I had a quiet breakdown by the end of it, and how the rest of the party seemingly refused to understand what was the problem. Story in which, I guess, there was no antagonist, just a lack of empathy and understanding or something. In late October, early November 2025, I've been suddenly invited to a group that played Cyberpunk 2020. However, they did not use its standard setting. Rather, the GM cooked up his own cyberpunk that had magic, secret mage wars, sulfur vampires, either as the base for everything in the universe, genetically modified animal people made initially as bioorganic weaponry against an alien threat, the alien threat itself being a giant space spider that can change anyone's genetic makeup on a molecular level just by touching them, successfully using the poor sods who are called arachnid insectoid-looking humanoids, made out of humans or other intelligent species. I plopped into this already mid-session as the aforementioned arachnid, two actually, spider-looking Samantha and her orchid mantis-looking younger sister Violet, played by the GM as an NPC that always was by Sam's side. Unfortunately, the way Sammy was added into this game was through being kidnapped by this universe's lowest ranking, but also most prevalent and interested in earthly matters gods, implanted with a living bio-implant of, at the time unknown function, which basically boiled down to being a control key to a half-machine, half-organic demigod entity made by a weapon of mass destruction. This implant couldn't be removed, unless with godly power, and it would basically turn its carrier into fuel to power itself to make it all work. After its user got powerful enough through leveling up their phenotype, skill power that allowed arachnid to basically mutate themselves whenever they needed as an organ, appendage, or whatever else, up to 10, just like every other CP 2020 skill, since only the way it will work by harvesting the power of arachnid phenotype. Basically, Samantha was made to be a sacrificial lamb. Okay, I'll say right now, this is a huge information dump and we're only few paragraphs in. I'm not even kidding you. We're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines in. Like 6 chunky paragraph lines, and that's already a lot of information for us to absorb. This is a lot. This gets very info heavy. I remember this specific story being extremely info heavy, so everybody bear together. And this is not a comment towards the writer, but I'm just saying there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of information that I don't know if it's really gonna be that valuable for us to know for the big crux of it all. But anyway, let's continue. We got to this point. Let's continue to try to break it down slowly. Of course, when she was given to the one killed, we basically considered main character of the story, a servant of the gods at once, even before his birth. Sam was pissed and didn't want anything to do with anyone in the group, tried to run away and such, but only had to stay because she was weak and powerless to do anything, and insisted they would protect her. And then very quickly they tried to remove the bio-implant from Samantha by chopping off one of her arms and burning it in the stump with fire magic. She quickly lost consciousness after that, was close to death, and developed powerful regeneration soon after. Sam would have died back then and there if it wasn't for successful casting role by groups Ether Mage specialized in wind. Why is your party immediately chopping off limbs? I want to protect you. Now let me go ahead and dismember you because I really want that chip in your arm for some reason. What a antagonistic way to start the campaign, dude. I don't know what's going on. Maybe these guys already know each other ahead of time and it's just the kind of vibe they go with. Is this the kind of campaign where like mutilation is just a very common because it's cyberpunk, you know, it's very gritty and raw and stuff. Is that why? Is it? I don't know, man. I've never been in like a start of a TTRPG campaign and be like, hi guys, and immediately just go for my limbs, you know, unless I did something wrong. I don't know, honestly. Since that introduction, many things happened. Samantha tried to fit in with the rest, together with her sister. But Sammy was just always much weaker and much more useless compared to those who basically already were close to a demigod status themselves, even despite quickly growing phenotype with new and useful mutations like invisibility, bone spikes, and even an adaptive nervous system that made her immune to many psychotic attacks and such. Still, Sammy felt genuinely useless, weak, pathetic, inadequate, and so did I. But at one point, we had a mid-boss fight against an enormous artificial parasite, an alien species well amounts to venom-like liquidity beings that live inside hosts that give them unique abilities, each one different and all called after songs, that even managed to vaporize Violet, who was quickly brought back by the power of friendly time aspect. Time is also a god, and it was shattered into many pieces a long time ago in the body of a crab man. But before that happened, Samantha went into desperate rage, tossing herself into the parasite while blowing a hole inside her head, since she could regen it away. But this also made it so the bio implant inside of her would register as a evading parasite, and since it actually consumed them, it had a huge hole inside of it and saved itself and my arachne. And then she did it again, with 6 guns. Sam almost died due to severe head trauma, but was fortunately put back together by our protagonist. Okay, see, this is what I said. This is extremely tough cow to me to chew through because this is a lot of information in a singular paragraph. This is like encyclopedia worth of information. You know what it feels like? It feels like I read a chapter of a book, and I read it in a single paragraph for reading. A single chapter of 7 pages worth of content was eaten through and devoured in a single paragraph. What the hell? Listen, this is a lot of information, and I'm worried about what is important here to keep track. Do I need to remember that there's now a parasite that is apparently involved somewhere with the hole in your head, and you had to use your 6 guns to blow holes in your head? Why are you shooting yourself in the head? Why is your character so masochistic? Is this a sex thing? I don't know. I have no idea. This is a lot. And also apparently your sister became a crab man because of a friendly time aspect. That's like a god that's been split into multiple pieces. There's a lot of information here, and this I feel like was the problem and the crux of why I was initially frustrated with the story. There's a lot of information and context that I don't think really should be here. At the end of the day, we should be focusing on the big problem. I get it, the campaign is extremely flavorful. There's a lot of different twists and turns and ebbs and flows, but is this important to the story? That is the biggest question. Let's continue. But also I feel like I'm going to be griping over this a little bit. Now apologies if I get annoying, but this is kind of important to talk about it. You know, it's important we discuss that, hey, maybe we just don't include all this detail that is the crux of the problem. You know, potentially. The reason I mentioned this particular fight is because after it was over and the parasite was left as a tiny version of itself, much more normal looking, it talked telepathically to Samantha, who also had this telepathy at this point, and they got to know a bit about each other, and Sammy found pity towards the thing and realized that they are not that different, being unwanted, hated, made to be these things by someone else, albeit Samantha was already born like that from her arachne parents, but still, they themselves were initially made into such by alien spiders. So the two found a friend in each other. Sammy desperately tried to let it stay with her and pleaded others to not kill the thing. And thus, the 2 sessions that walked around together, the parasite replacing Sam's damaged coat with itself, taking its shape. I got another question. And listen, I don't want to be jumping every single time, but I noticed that for some reason, you're saying that your character was weak and pathetic, inadequate, and all that stuff. Like, what was the reason for this? Is this like a trauma roleplay? The reason I'm asking is because I come from, I'm not even gonna name drop it, but basically there was a VR chat roleplay group that was a little bit grimdark that I was roleplaying in. Anyway, it's basically like a big D&D LARP. Kind of, sort of. Not D&D, but similar. We use rolls for check to see what happens. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There was a lot of people in there that absolutely adored the characters were going through trauma, and there was a lot of trauma roleplay, or basically the characters going through the most excruciating, miserable stuff possible, emotional degradement, mental torture, things of that nature. The players, they're like, yeah, I love my character getting tortured, but in there, it was just basically just a big, to be honest, cry fest, because it was just really depressing and sad. People went through all kinds of horrible stuff that happened to their characters, and their characters just have those psyche broken. But the players are like, yeah, I love it, it's so good. But honestly, it was a little bit concerning. It felt like a big ask for help. It was like a big scream for help, where people really engaging in that like trauma roleplay to the point where they wanted to out trauma each other, and it became a little bit toxic because it became competitive trauma dumping. Competitive trauma dumping is the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my entire life, and I'd rather not have to deal with it ever again, because that makes me feel uncomfortable, man. I don't know, somebody just like trivializes trauma for the sake of entertainment and story, to me, does not make me feel comfortable in the slightest. I understand if it's like a character you're role-playing in that moment, you know, in a small group and stuff like that, but this kind of stuff was streamed. People made content through it. People like basically streamed each other going through trauma, and themselves and their characters going through trauma, and try to out-trauma each other. It was weird. Anyway, let's continue. Things were seemingly going well Until next session, after Samantha asked the parasite for help alleviate the pain of constantly bleeding cultists that it rescued recently, which it did, by sacrificing a part of itself to basically plug the holes. So Sam wondered if she could feed and nourish the poor thing, and it answered that it consumes other parasites. Samantha knew that 2 NPCs left with the party were hosts. A devious yet foolish plan was set in motion. Sometime later, the same session, Sammy organized the group so that she could go invisible with everyone else distracted in the 2. And at the opportune moment, she sneaks towards the 2 hosts and her parasite blasted them with its light, incapacitating the humans and the parasites together. Quickly proceeds to consume the first parasite. Unfortunately, very quickly, one of the player characters, a giant orangutan man with superhuman serum injected, slammed his fist into Sam and her parasite. Since he did warn that any funny move and I'll end it, Sam still pleaded to just let them go. But alas, one other player character, the Ether Mage, also joined in alongside the superhuman NPC, and together they very quickly dispatched the parasite, leaving Samantha an emotional wreck with a broken arm that was quickly regenerating. She even tried to provoke the NPC to murder her at that point, not seeing a reason to continue, but the rest of the party made him let it be since she's basically a corporate asset TM. Okay, this is a lot to go through, but basically you decide you gotta collude with this parasite, which I'm assuming was directed by your DM or something, or storyteller, whatever Cyberpunk uses. I'm gonna just use DM. It's one I use, guys. It's one I common use, okay? Sue me. Other players responded by having your character be pacified and break no arm, but ultimately killing the parasite that was in your character. This was just a green flag PvP session, and I kind of find a problem with it because I don't think DMs should be encouraging this sort of thing to happen unless you just decide to encourage it for yourself. I'm assuming your DM is the one that's role-playing as your parasite and you're just playing as a character, and they're colluding, trying to encourage you to PvP others. So you go to PvP them, they PvP back, and your character gets the parasite killed, and then now your character is sad and upset and basically asking to be absolutely eliminated, and they said you're basically a corporate asset, probably because DM is like, oh, I don't want to kill the character, I just want him to stay here and everything. Dude, this is like this is a massive red flag. The fact that your DM allows PvP and encourages PvP, and that you actually go with it and actually attempt to PvP, I think it's a problem. I think it's a massive problem. And I believe, if I remember correctly from reading the story, there's gonna be a lot more of this event happening. DM sanctioned PvP should just not be a thing. Unless everybody is cool with whatever's going on the table, DM section PvP should just not be a thing. And if your DM encourages you to PvP with others instead of working with them and cooperating with them, I kind of feel like it sort of takes away the spirit from TTRPGs. Now, I could be wrong, and maybe Cyberpunk is all about PvP and I just don't know anything. Morrow, you're just dumb, you don't know it better. But most TTRPGs that I've read about or know about, they're more of a cooperative experience than they are PvP experience. And I feel like with Cyberpunk 2020, I think it also would be more of a cooperative experience. You probably want to work with your party instead of against your party, because PvP at the table is just gonna force a lot of people to get hurt, and Fifi's hurt, and it's just not gonna solve anything. I'm just saying, I feel like your DM is a problem, and I think you engaging in PvP is not a good thing. So next night, Sam tried to leave, ran away in the middle of the night, and the only reason she was found out was due to her sister developing a tracking mutation shortly before that. She was found, caught, but at that point, everyone else just listened to a very desperate and emotional charged rant about how nobody treats her as a person. They're cold-blooded killers who killed someone she already considered found family, that she never chose to be on the path in the first place, and she's done, basically. And after no one really taking her seriously and not trying much to calm her down, Sam made an unnerving smile and almost finished herself again with a barrage of 6 guns to the head. The only reason that didn't happen was because Violet, her sister, was faster and managed to slap the guns away, deservingly asking what was that for, leading to Samantha's emotional breakdown. This whole mess finally ending for now. So your character runs away, has a breakdown, nobody responds how you want to. You decide you gotta eliminate your character, your NPC ally stops you, and then there's more sadness. Like, this is just trauma roleplay, and I get some people into that, and I'm not gonna judge you. If you're into trauma roleplay, bully for you. But the fact that you mentioned that while nobody took your character seriously and not tried much to calm it down, that implies to me that you didn't get a reaction that you thought you're gonna get, so you decided you're gonna off your character and escalate things further. And then when your character couldn't do it, your character basically had a mental breakdown, which, I mean, trauma is trauma as it is, and now it's just gonna become bitter feelings. I feel like it's just gonna stem to basically bitter, you becoming bitter at the party because they don't accept your character or don't see your character how you want it to be seen, and maybe things are gonna divulge. I'm pretty sure that's what happened last time when I read the story before, when I first recorded this. But let's continue. For sometime after, Sam wasn't really doing much, not interacting with others, being too broken at that point. Yet at one point, Sam at least realized that she did and felt guilty. But together, that Sam also realized that her bio implant is sentient. albeit not very smart, more akin to a dog. In short time, she befriended her little worm, not cared deeply for it, despite everything. Shortly after, during a boss fight, Samantha was turned into a child, which concludes with her finally getting phenotype 10, led into a tiny arachnid cocoon herself during one night, slowly metamorphing back into adult form and rearranging her mutations for the first time, which is an important moment of empowerment for once. However, it wasn't the only important thing, as ever before that, she had a good interaction with a few of the gods, mainly Nurch, god of flesh and bone, scientist of sorts, a later one after metamorphosis with the youngest goddess of nature, was turned into a god without her consent. Really? It's a long story. Really? I couldn't tell. I wrote this previous paragraph specifically to establish the important part that would come soon after. That being, at one point the party decided to go full on murder hobo and kill all the gods, mainly because they tend to lie from time to time and all have their own agenda, and we're all tired of being screwed over. We know better. Let's use the power of darkness itself and kill them. And they literally went with it, allying themselves with the cult of darkness, which had a portal with it in their castle, which allowed to empower the rest of the party before they quickly proceeded into the realm where the gods reside, since the normal reality doesn't allow them outside of sturdy mortal bodies. Thing is, Samantha was very much against it. At that point, she saw no good reason to ally with a thing that literally wants to consume the world and kill beings that, although kidnapped and made her into a sacrificial lamb, were kind to Sam, never once lied to her, and even bestowed some small gifts, truly caring for the little lamb. Okay, hold on 1 second. This just feels like a, you know what this feels like? It feels like a, God, what is it called again? It's like, oh, I forgot the term for it. But basically it feels like you become a friend to the hostages and stuff. Like you were a hostage, but you basically end up allying yourself to the hostages, and you're like basically on their side, even though they've done all these horrible things to you, and you justify to yourself that like, oh, no, it's okay. It's fine. It's not that big of a deal. I forgot the name for it. There's a specific name for it. Either way, that's kind of what it feels like. So she refused. And with that starting, her splitting from the party and trying to save the gods. Unfortunately, failing to save the first, and honestly the worst morally one, after the completely losing any trust and faith she had in the party and fully becoming Nurch's right hand specifically, all because she was the second god they tried to kill, and he was the one who showed most kindness to her. Plus they both had similar scientific outlook on life, splitting the party and PvPing against the party and turning against the party. Not a good thing. I think it's a problem with the DM or allowing something like this, but also, I mean, yes, it's a problem for you as well, but also I feel like the reason why a lot of this stuff is happening is because DM just says, sure, you could do whatever and I'll work into the story, and then they basically just allow you guys to basically go against each other, and I feel like it just gotta lead to just a lot of bad feelings. You shouldn't have allied yourself against the party. Yeah, it's okay to disagree with them and not wanting to follow the crazy plan of killing all the gods just because gods are, you know, think for themselves. Of course gods are going to be able to think about themselves. Gods at the end of the day are like, even in D&D, some gods are just selfish beings, some gods are just selfish a-holes. The party choosing to fight against them and align themselves with some sort of a cult of darkness, I think it was called, just to try to murder hope of the gods, is a crazy plot point. But I think it's also even crazier that DM is like perfectly cool with you choosing to ally yourself with others, unless that wasn't the intention and you just sprung up on them. But I'm assuming with how saying outright that you're allying yourself with it, I'm assuming DM is just letting it happen, or maybe they're not letting it happen. Maybe you want to work with Nurch, but DM is like, no, you cannot. The story gotta move on because I have my super awesome DNPC in here. Which, to be honest, they do have a DNPC in a party. That's another big sin here. Having a DNPC in a party is basically encouraging players to do something specific or otherwise. This is a problem. This whole game is a problem. Unfortunately, no matter what she did, how she tried to help, Samantha failed to save Nurch and almost died herself in a massive fire that destroyed Nurch's tower, him in his powerful form. Left Sam almost burnt out husk that was also alive thanks to regeneration and her little worm. However, this led to Sammy partaking in a ritual of consuming Nurch's flesh, what was left from the fire, and becoming one basically, since Nurch was supposed in time overtake Samantha's body after that, but for now, Sam had some of Nurch's power for itself, which is flesh shaping. After that, the entire next session or two was spent in covert attempts to murder the party, which is I am both kind of ashamed for and still giddy about, since it was very fun, but would not want to repeat this again unless there's a good story reason. And I feel like this is kind of like a self-admittance. You're saying you're ashamed of it, but you're also giddy about it. I think if a player is reveling in the idea to screw over other players in this kind of a game, we got a couple of problems. First of all, this is a game where clearly DM is fully encouraging, not just allowing, but encouraging for players to try to screw each other over. And two, this kind of breeds a lot of hostility and animosity. Well, it really should not be hostility and animosity between players. I understand with some games you might be able to get away with it, especially those that are kind of more of a fun side that don't really mind having this be a mechanic or aspect. But I feel like in this situation, this is indeed a problem because you are actively encouraging for PvP. You're engaging in this PvP and you get about it because it's probably kind of intoxicating, exciting. It's like, ooh, I get to screw over players. I wonder what I can do next. You know what it feels like? It's like when you're finding a succubus in D&D and a succubus use their charm ability, right, to try to like entrance one of the party members to basically allow for legal PvP. I went through recently. I had players fight a succubus of sorts in a Final Fantasy D&D campaign, and yes, there was a moment where they were just kind of going, yeah, kind of hamski against each other and actually allowing themselves to be like legally okay to PvP for time being until the effect ended. And while that's cool to have some PvP moments, to have the entire campaign be redirected to you basically plotting against the heirs of the party, you are turning into a problem. You in this situation, how did it become a problem? Instead of noticing the clear red flag that you should be going against the party, you guys should be working together in some capacity, or maybe at least bring it up at the table if it's a problem. Maybe you didn't see a problem with it whatsoever. You decided, you know what, I'm just gonna ride it out and just let things happen and go for it and not even care about it and just be part of the problem. You were indeed part of the problem. You engaged in PvP. You aren't the only person responsible, but you're still part of the problem here. And I kind of feel like this is not okay to do. You shouldn't actively try to screw the other players over, regardless of if they're being a-holes or not. If it's just not a pleasant table, like enjoyable time at the table, you just don't really feel like playing with these people, you probably should have left forever ago. But let's continue. Let's see how this ends. We only got a few paragraphs left over. So under the guise of a new character and vanishing from time to time in invisibility, Samantha was attacking the party's minds with powered up telepathy. Basically amounted to, you should off yourself now, and variations of stop right now. And even then, the game itself keeps preventing success as the party still managed to kill another god, the nature one, but almost got wiped by the warrior god that came in to help. If it wasn't for the main antagonist of this season appearing the first time and vaporizing him. Okay. Okay, I think we're getting a little bit towards the edgy side. I get it, Cyberpunk is kind of edgy and, you know, brutal, edgy, whatever, you know. People don't care. People are doing drugs and making like cybernetic enhancements on them, mutations and all that. But like, this is like an edgy fever dream. That's what it is. It sounds like an edgy 13-year-old's wet dream or something. We could just outright be like, you should off yourself now as a psychic attack. Jesus Christ, like this is insane. After that session, Samantha revealed herself out of necessity, since the group had to work together if they wanted to save the world from even bigger threat. Unfortunately, at that point, Aaron treated her even worse than before, despite Sammy apologizing and acknowledging her mistakes, so resentment only grew stronger, and so did her covenant with the god of flesh. Yeah, you're PvPing the rest of the party. Of course there's gonna be animosity. This is animosity that was sanctioned by the DM to be allowed for this game so that you could be basically PvPing against each other. So when you reveal yourself, of course there's gonna be animosity. If somebody I'm playing with is constantly trying to kill my character or off my character in some way or screw my character over in some way, and they just come out and say, my bad, we gotta work together, of course my character is not gonna be happy about it, nor will I be happy about it. Of course it's gonna be built. This is literally DM that is allowing animosity to be built. You're part of this machine. You're part of this process where animosity just builds continuously on loop and tandem. I think you got mixed up in this game and you were definitely involved in this and you definitely at fault in some capacity for sure, 100%. But dude, this is just this is not a kind of game you should be playing. And I'll just be honest, I don't think TTRPGs like this are designed where you should be trying to PvP the rest of the party and go against them. This is just my 2 cents, my 2 little soul coins. Giving back the soul coins. I need them for my ferry to Succulendia. Let's see how this ends. Let's see what the next paragraph is at least. Over the last act of the story, through our smart and horrible by genius idea, Nurture removed himself and a little worm from Samantha's body as clone of her and her sister, and she didn't need to be sacrificial lamb anymore. Yet in character, Sammy was already too attached to Nurture, who was genuinely saw as someone deserving of respect, was basically his most trusted follower. So they continue working together up until the end, trying to align everything so that Nurture will both save the world from the antagonist and get knowledge and understanding from this figure through a cunning plan. Alas, the game itself, through dice, prevented it till the very end, and the sheer despise from the rest of the party towards Nurture and now Samantha didn't help, to the point that after all was done and the antagonist was killed off, One of them tried to murder Sammy's innocent but loyal sister Violet just to make Sam hurt. She did manage to save her through that now shared flesh-shaping power, but still. And again, this DM-sanctioned PvP is unacceptable in my opinion. This is not how TTRPG should be. I don't know what why DM allowing this sort of thing and why they just allowing you guys to continue this, but this is not okay. I don't care what kind of games you want to play, but this feels like a kind of game where basically the players are being pinned to have animosity against one another, and the only thing it's going to lead to is hurt feelings and people being vindictive for one another, right? Because you attacking the players, they attack back, you attack them again, now they're attacking the NPC that you care about, and then this and that and this. This is a big fucking mess, dude. I'm sorry, but this is a mess. This is a mess of a game. The whole final act, Samantha trying to redeem herself, yet the rest treating her like crap, even worse than before. Well, like I said, you are PvPing the rest of the team. No wonder they would have animosity. Gee, I want you, Willikers, Batman. I wonder if you just never PvP the team, maybe they wouldn't have this animosity to begin with. Really took a toll on my psyche. I already struggled for half a year with everything during the game at that point, as mentioned above, and the final 2 sessions completely destroyed me and I barely was able to finish the campaign with the rest, preferring to stay on the side and watch. And even after all that was done, after me and GM explaining the reasoning why Samantha turned away, it's very fortunate uplifting GM fully supported and understood my ideas to the point of allowing me to run a separate game in a setting later when we have time. The rest still didn't get it and didn't accept it, didn't really care. Most of them really were akin to murder hobos, at least in a particular game that already killed pretty much most people. It didn't really treat my poor Arachne any better. Listen, I'm sorry, but this is a smoking gun. This is your self-admission that, yeah, a lot of it was my ideas and I was a problem. But it's okay. And when me and DM try to explain why it's okay that I was the problem player in this situation, this campaign, to go against other players and stuff, the rest of the players didn't accept it. Of course they didn't accept it, because why would they accept the fact that you just trying to justify it's okay, guys, me and DM plotted together to have me as a problem player the entire time. Of course they wouldn't accept it. You were the problem in the campaign. And yes, the other players being murder hobos is not okay, but 2 wrongs, 3 wrongs, 100,000 wrongs don't make anything right. And you being part of the problem is not okay. It's not right. You shouldn't escalate to be part of the problem. Also, I gotta be honest, when you say it was uplifting, the GM supported, understood your ideas, that means the GM was plotting with you to make your character a problem for the party and to allow you to be the problem player for the entire game. And that, I think, is the biggest smoking gun here. You're plotting against the party, and your GM actively encouraged you plotting. And I don't care how fortunate and uplifting it is that they supported your ideas. The fact that these are your ideas to go against the party and to have some sort of way to screw them over makes you a problem player. You are the problem. You were led astray, and this DM literally relished and loved the idea of turning you into the problem player for the party, because probably they'll think, oh, drama and story and stuff, but this does not make a good fun game for everybody else, because now it basically becomes beautiful feelings just cause tee-hee plot against other players, tee-hee-hee-hee. You know what makes the game not fun? When you have when you're supposed to be playing a cooperative game together, no matter what kind of game you're playing, and you have somebody in the party that is actively trying to screw over the rest of the party. If somebody did this level to you, do you think you'll be so welcoming to the idea that they're actively admitting that they're plotting against you and the DM supported the entire plotting and scheming? I don't think so. I'm gonna say I don't think so. I could be wrong. Maybe you'll be like, yes, I am fully okay with that. I'm perfectly cool with that. But I personally feel, I don't know why I'm clapping, I personally feel that a DM actively encouraged you to be a problem, and that are not okay at all. It's definitely not okay if the rest of the party just doesn't care about what your character's saying and stuff and become murder hopers and stuff. But at that point, if they don't care about your character's involvement, leave. Don't play this game. Why even play this game? Just so you can trauma dump? Don't play this game. Why are you doing this to yourself? You could choose to not play crappy games, you know. You could choose to play a game where the DM is not encouraged you to go against the rest of the party, you know. Let's finish this. I'm at fault too, of course. You know, we're going against the party. Shell, I didn't even want to do this for more than 1 session. But the rest just keep going the worst possible choices and not doing anything to make Sam trust them. So yeah, it was painful experience either way. It's been a couple of months since then, yet I'm still hurting, which is why I'm even typing this in the first place. And I want someone to hear my story and just listen, I guess. I may be in the wrong, I will accept it, but I just want to be heard. Thank you for reading and listening, I guess. Well, thank you so much for trusting to write to me. I don't know if you'll like my feedback. Maybe you'll be like, hey, Morrow was kind of a jerk this time. I just want to vent and talk about my character going through a lot of stuff. And yes, the character did go through stuff, but also 2 wrongs don't make a right. Let's be honest. 2 wrongs do not make a right. And what you did against the rest of the party is not okay. PvPing the rest of the party and plotting to actively screw them over in some way is not okay. And having your DM encourage you to do this, also not okay. The way they treat your character, probably not good either whatsoever. Actually, not even probably. It wasn't right. Yeah, sure, I understand. But also, different games, man. Different games. Find yourself a group. If, let's say, for example, you want it to be a group where you could be emotional as a character and have a little bit of trauma roleplay, find a game where other people vibe with that. Because this doesn't feel like this was the same kind of game. Clearly, everybody else wanted to do their thing. They didn't care for your character's involvement, but also I don't think you really gave anybody a reason for involving or caring for your character. Look, I've been around trauma roleplay. I've been around trauma roleplay in VR chat, roleplay groups and everything. And the one thing I can say is nothing feels stranger than having somebody go so hard and heavy into trauma roleplay. I kind of feel like I'm on the sideline and be like, oh, I probably shouldn't be involved because this clearly doesn't involve me, so I probably shouldn't be involved, even though maybe it's them, you know, opening up as like an opportunity for interaction. But it's really difficult to interact with trauma unless you're prepared for it. It's really difficult to interact with someone having such a mental breakdown in character in roleplay, because it would be also difficult to do that if somebody was doing it in real life. If somebody was having a mental breakdown in front of me, like in person with like no jokes, no roleplay or anything, I too would not be geared to know what to do in that situation. Okay, I might be able to talk somebody down if it's like a friend or anything, but like I'm not great with kind of these kind of things, with kind of heavy topics, heavy subjects, loss and everything. I'm not good at this. Imagine if you suddenly were put in this kind of situation. Maybe in your head you think, oh, I know exactly what to say, but when you put in a situation where somebody's actually having a mental breakdown, it is impossible to know exactly what they need. That's why a lot of people very cleverly, very smartly choose not to do anything specific about it because they aren't geared or equipped to be able to handle these kind of things. And now you take it to roleplay, right? It's supposed to be fun, exciting, entertaining, enjoyable, a fun little romp together with a couple of people that you may like to play TTRPGs with, or maybe your friends and stuff, but suddenly somebody there is just trying to out-trauma somebody else and the rest of the group. What do you do with that? Do you engage in the trauma, just listen to them vent as they basically trauma dump towards you the entire time, and that's just basically their interaction? Or do you just try to not sure what to do and you just kind of slink away and don't interact with them? Because I would not be geared for it, dude. I don't know about you, but I'm not really into trauma roleplay. I mean, some trauma is okay. I think some trauma is fine, especially when characters build a little bit of like a friendliness and they open up a little bit. Like, you ever heard of a tsundere terminology? Tsundere is like, they're really tough and rude on the outside, but they're really soft on the inside. And you really got to work through the little outer shell before you can get into the nice gooey center and really get to know the character and have them be warm and fuzzy and stuff. It's a very common anime trope. There's a lot of very common anime tropes. If you ever seen anime, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. If you've never seen, please check out Toradora. Toradora, amazing anime, has a great tsundere and a wonderful love story. Highly recommend. It is fantastic. It is the best thing ever. I'm sure everybody here has already seen Toradora, but if somebody here hasn't seen Toradora, you're welcome. I hope you enjoy yourself. Anyway, we're gonna end the story here for today. I want to thank you, OP, for writing that. I'll keep you anonymous because I just don't want you to put it on blast. Listen, everybody's vowed to their opinions and stuff, but yeah, I'm gonna keep you anonymous. I want to thank you so much for writing to me. I want to thank you so much for sending this email. Sorry it took so long to get through it, but yeah, I've spoke my piece and that's it. The next story is going to be some more RPG horror stories.